Everyone dreams of living an uncommon life, and the best asset you have to achieve your dreams is you. Welcome to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living uncommonly. We're also going to give you some tools and strategies for building wealth and for pursuing an uncommon path that is uniquely right for you.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Uncommon Wealth Podcast, where I'm your host, Phillip Ramsey, and today we have an amazing guest, Micah Johnson. Thanks for being with us. Here's his bio. A seasoned entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience, having successfully navigated multiple mergers and exits, scaled 8-figure businesses, and enjoyed a balanced lifestyle of work and leisure. Now he's dedicated to helping other leaders achieve the same freedom and success. Welcome to the show, Micah.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, it's not easy to go through acquisitions and mergers. Can I get an amen?
Yeah, amen. It's like not easy. Not easy is an understatement.
Right. Okay, so we're going to go to that in a second. But tell the listeners what you're doing currently with Workday Ninja?
Workday Ninja, yep.
Workday Ninja,
yep.
Yes. Tell me about that, because it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, this is a amalgamation over tons of years of experience, but really it's going into companies and figuring out where the gaps are in this whole paradigm shift that we're now experiencing. So we've got AI, we've got automation that actually works, and we can plug all these platforms together. But most businesses are still running on, hey, let's hire people to do a bunch of manual workflows and processes and copy and paste and create reports and create slide decks and do all these things that maybe not is their best skill set because they're hired to go and like account manage and sell and do all these other things. So we go in and we eliminate the busy work with automation and AI and optimized processes.
So all the listeners know like why we want you on the show. Okay. Ta-da. No, that's really good. Okay. So let's go back to the mergers and the acquisitions and the exits and all that stuff. What do you think the biggest thing you learned in all the things and all the ways that God's like introduced you to all this stuff? What do you think the biggest thing that you've learned through that?
Ooh, I would say acceptance of differences. I would say going into the first merger that I went through was not the scale at the second one. The second one, I was still kind of in the mindset of like, I'd say a bit my way or the highway. Like, this is obviously the right way to do things, so we're going to do it this way here. And we created a very clear structure and process-driven environment. The company that we merged with did not have all of that in place. They were larger than us in revenue. And so, just as, without getting too much on a tangent, it was very interesting and very eye-opening to go, holy crap, we can run businesses in all different types of ways and manage in all different types of ways. And there is no wrong way or right way. It's just different. And it produces different outcomes. Right. So, yeah.
It is fascinating for me. The times I get to talk to individuals that sold their business, but they have to stay on board for a time, is like, they all seem like they come to that same conclusion of like, what? Like, this is not the same. And like, as you're a business owner, you kind of get caught in the rut of how you do things. And it's not easy to change because like, it's your business. No. So you're like, no, we're going to do it this way because this is the way my mind works. And then when you get pushed in something else and it's not your business anymore, it's an uphill battle. I'll just say that.
Yes.
Okay,
yes, so very much so.
It says you're a serial entrepreneur, which again, I call it kind of the uncommon path. But how early on did you start that? And you obviously went to college, then you stepped out of college and you said, hey, I want to be doing this myself. Talk to me.
Yeah, I didn't last too long in college. And so where did I start this? Officially, my first business started when I was 20. Unofficially, it was when I was about 14 or 15 when I was tasked with mowing the lawn.
Yep.
And I would get paid $14, I think, a week, if I remember right. It's been a while now, to mow the lawn. And I quickly went to the neighborhood kid and said, "Hey, Jake, I'll pay you $7 to mow my lawn."
Yes, I love it.
And he was like, "Heck yeah." So I got to, eat oatmeal cookies while
your neighbor was mowing your yard, and he was happy. Yep. You were happy, and your dad was probably happy.
Everybody won until my mom came home early one day.
Oh, Micah, that's great. There is something to be said about that, though. Like just the power of thinking outside the box. And for you, like, okay, my neighbor's going to win. He's going to get $7. I'm going to win because I don't have to do anything, and I'm going to get $7. And my dad's going to win my parents are going to win because their house is going to be mowed, their lawn's going to be mowed.
At the time, I didn't think it was anything different than anybody else would think, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I still don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, I'd be super impressed if my son.
Yes, I'd be proud of him. Like, yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. And that's what my mom tells me. She's like, I got home and I'm like, she said, I don't know if I should be mad at you or excited that you figured this out, that you sold him on this. Like, I didn't know what to do.
Oh, that's good, Micah. And so now you kind of do that same thing. Like, you go into businesses and companies and you're like, okay, what is it that you're needing to get done? Do you have a niche or a different specific company you like to work with? Or you're like, I'll do any company?
So after my last exit, I started consulting, and I would take on any type of company. And where my head was at then was, I just want to understand, because that merger really opened up my mind to saying, okay, there's all different types of ways to run companies. So then that company was predominantly in the United States. We had a couple clients in Canada. We had Puerto Rico, which of course is a Commonwealth. So we were very state-centric. And after that merger, I'm like, man, wouldn't it be cool to see how companies all over the world are run? And so I pursued engagements all over the world, even with completely different time changes like Australia. And
that's a whole
time differences, I should say.
And they have different seasons. Our summer is their winter, and their winter is our summer. Bananas. Yes. The first time I'm like, no. Anyway, that's true. Okay.
Absolutely. I remember jumping on a Zoom with them thinking, why are they all wearing coats? Like, why are they all wearing sweaters? Yeah.
That's funny. Okay. Let's talk about, I know I'm all over the map, but there's just a lot to cover here, Micah. I'm sorry. But let's talk about your first business that you started up, like officially, and then walked away from it and sold it. What was that company? And then let's talk about the exit of it.
Yeah. So the company's name was Oculus Media. It was a terrible name because I thought I was 20. I thought I was being really cool. Let's make this really cool. Ocular. It's about sight. It was a web design and hosting company. And the main problem with the name, as I'm sure you can guess, is that nobody knew what the hell I was saying or could spell it. And so that was troublesome. But I would cold call all day long and then work on the projects at night.
Wow.
And
grinding.
So me and a buddy started that up. And we ended up scaling that to about 300 clients. So it got to the point where I couldn't cold call during the day anymore because we started getting referral clients. And there was I remember just this feeling like this shift that happened where all of a sudden the phone was ringing and other people were referring us. So that became our client acquisition method, which is wonderful. And, but I found out later on that one of the reasons that so many people were referring me is because I was charging so little.
That's right. That's right.
That I was that guy. I was that guy that would be really great work for really little money. And everybody's like, oh, you got to go talk to Micah. And here I'm thinking like, yes,
I'm doing great work. Which you probably were.
Like, it was, but couldn't scale.
Right. Oh, that's so good. And so when did you decide like, all right, we need to put a pin on that one. Let's move on. How did you get out of that?
Yeah. So I got introduced to a guy that was running an email marketing company in Minneapolis, where I grew up, and we started chatting. And so he's like, dude, like, let's work something out. Let's join forces. Love to have you come on board. Let's do that. So that's, that was kind of like, and he called it, he goes, you've got these clients, but you're probably not making that much money. Mm-hmm. When I sat down and really looked at him, like, yeah,
you're right. Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah. Right.
So it was a perfect acquisition pitch for a young entrepreneur, which was,
yes,
hey, right. I'll absorb your business. I'll absorb you, and then I'll guarantee you get paid more.
Deal.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you did that for how many years? Then you moved over to his company, Oculus Media, gone away.
Yep. So that one merged. I worked with them for about a year. It was essentially, they opened up an office in a small town in Nebraska. And so Minneapolis to small town Nebraska.
It's not going to work out.
I ended up, it didn't work out. Short story. Yeah. In my early to mid 20s. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
For sure. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So then Micah goes off, and then what do you do next?
Well, I didn't know what I was going to do next. I knew I got myself in quite the pickle. So I'm sitting in Nebraska. I remember to this day, it was about, I had an opportunity to speak in Fort Lauderdale. And so I was prepping for that trip. And about 2 weeks before that trip, I had to figure out hobbies in Nebraska because, I didn't really know what to do with myself. And
right.
Yeah. So I tried to pick up photography. Fan. I'm like, I'm going to take pictures of these cool landscapes that I have around me. And I remember traipsing through fields in Nebraska, coming back the next day, waking up and thinking, wow, my ankles really itch. What is going on? And I had a horrible case of the chiggers.
Oh,
which
Micah.
All around my sock line, all around. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay,
it's time.
That was a week before I'm going to Fort Lauderdale. And I'm like, okay, that's a sign. This is not for me. That's and right. I go down to Fort Lauderdale. I speak. I took an extra day, hung out at the beach on that extra day. And so now we're going from Minnesota to Nebraska to Florida. Fort Lauderdale with beaches, and it's palm trees and ocean and the smell and the sand. And I'm on the beach going, oh, this is the type of environment that I need to be in. This is good. Like lakes are great. 10,000 lakes are great, but an ocean.
But this,
beach. Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Now we're talking. And the very next day, as the universe sometimes work, I'm sitting at the gate, waiting for my at the airport, waiting for my plane to come in. And one of my original clients calls me up and he's like, hey man, I've got this idea for an analytics play. I've already got the office. I'll fly you out to San Diego. No obligations. Come on out, check it out. And I'm thinking free trip to San Diego.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, at a bare minimum.
I'm out of Nebraska. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it ended up working.
that was the I would say the trigger that got me from Nebraska to San Diego, which is as an early 20-year-old, a huge, massive culture shock and upgrade.
Right. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto, or whatever that line is.
Yep.
Okay. And so it worked out. You just decided to take the plunge and head down that route.
Yeah. We moved, I didn't even date in Nebraska. To anybody who's listening who's from Nebraska, I went camping in Nebraska last weekend and it was amazing.
Yes.
It was absolutely incredible. There are beautiful places there, but for early to mid 20s, like 23-year-old.
Lots of chiggers too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I almost had like some PTSD response from like, I am not walking towards tall grass.
I guarantee you did. Yes.
Yep. Yep. Saved it. It was great. A great experience, but it is a beautiful state. It is a pretty cool place. And there are some major hidden gems, but San Diego was exactly what I was looking for. It had the beaches, it had the palm trees. It was beautiful. It had the right weather. We had an opportunity. We raised a little over $1 million to fund that business. We scaled to about 19 employees. We had a great book of business coming in from the family of businesses that we were working with. And that was right at it was kind of at the end of like MySpace and the beginning of Facebook, where Facebook had just become a platform and introduced that you can build apps and started targeting businesses. And so I saw the writing on the wall going, ooh, man, this feels like how it felt when I was doing web design and hosting right at the beginning of web design and websites. Like, I remember making those original cold calls when I was 20 and people still telling me, that's the devil. I am not going to be on the internet ever. And, so I started getting that same, not that, well, it's arguable on social media, but
right.
But I started getting that same feeling, right? Like, there's a paradigm shift happening. Yeah. There's something that I can grab onto here that I can see is happening. And so about a year and a half into working with that company, I ended up quitting and turning them into my first client in one meeting. And that funded essentially me in my living room to then repeat the effort of, I'm going to start making cold calls. I'm going to start reaching out to my now growing personal network. And I'm going to say, hey, I can help you reach this audience without ads by hitting this thing called the social arena, because social media wasn't a buzzword yet.
Right.
And so I had to call it something. And that ended up turning into a 12-year journey. So
really?
Yeah, it was amazing. So scaled that up, focused on what now is social media marketing. Ended up specializing in multi-location businesses. So I didn't want to do the mom and pop, the single location thing. There was a bigger play here that I saw with, if you have multiple locations and you're managing multiple brands, those are unique problems to this new paradigm that we're entering. And I wanted to solve those more complicated problems because I knew that'd be more valuable. So that's what we went after. We ended up getting into auto groups and radio groups, multi-location, multi-brand. And we dealt with social media and reputation management. We had a services component to that business. We had a software component to that business.
Wow.
That we dropped up. Yep.
And then that's the one that you sold for, that was the one that you kind of came in as like, okay, let's lower our expectations here. So there's more than one way to do this. And then somebody came back and was like, hey, Micah, I'd love to purchase that bad boy from you. And you were like, all right, let's see what we can do.
Yep. Essentially. Okay. Very, very short summary, but yes.
Yeah. And then, so you got through that. At this point, now you're married, been 12 years and you have an 8-year-old son. So where is that in the continuum of your relationship?
So I don't know if I should share it in a podcast, but I met my wife from hiring her. She was one of my early hires.
Yeah, you did. Scandalous, Micah. Yep. Scandalous. Yep. I like it. That's uncommon. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. Yep. Check that one off. So yeah, it was, but it was one of those, honestly, it was a love at first sight thing. It was a current employee who was like, hey, I've got somebody who I think would fill the position that we're looking for. And he referred her. And I remember walking into the interview. She was wearing a black dress. She has long, straight blonde hair. And I can't remember anything else about that interview. Straight up blackout. That's great. I just remember kind of being like, oh, okay. All right. Wow. I don't know how I'm going to handle this or make it through this, but we're just going to go for it. And I have no recollection of
and you don't know how you did what I said, but you obviously did. Yeah.
So I said something right because she did come to work for me. We worked together for almost 2 years. And then we ended up dating for about 3 months before we got engaged. And we were engaged for about 6 months, very short turnarounds here.
That's the way to do it. Come on.
Yep.
You know what you want.
And then we've been happily married ever since.
That's great. So where were you in the continuum of all that? So you were still working at that company?
No, that was after I started my second business and scaled the second one up. We were probably at about 8 employees.
Okay.
Wow. At the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this has been the second exit you've had, acquisition. Great job. And then now you are sitting there with probably some fairly good money and scratching your head of like, but Micah's not done, right?
It's interesting. I'm sure you've probably heard this from other people, because when I share this, other people have said, yeah, I hear that a lot.
Yep.
But after that exit, it was the lowest point in my life.
Yep.
Hands down.
Yep.
The day after, right? I woke up and I'm like, I have no emails to answer, no Slacks to answer, no use. And I instantly went down this like, oh man, I'm useless. What am I going to do now?
Right.
Who's going to hire me? I've been self-employed since I was 20. Like,
I'm unemployable.
What am I going to do? The world is going to pass me by.
Right.
Yeah.
This is true.
I had a bit of a freak out.
Yeah. So I had a great interview with a close friend of mine. Him and his business partner, they sold their company. And then within 3 weeks, they both had a panic attack, both of them. And they had a fairly good sized check in their bank account. And they were like, what just happened? Like, what is happening? Like there's like an identity crisis.
Absolutely.
There's also too, like entrepreneurs and business owners. And when you're scaling it up, like you push yourself very hard. And so you really don't know what the byproduct of that stress and that drive is going to be. I'll tell you, it'll hit you, because after that interview, Micah, I was thinking to myself, man, I'm super grateful that I don't have this huge amount of money in my bank account, because like I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow that I did yesterday, but there is a point where like that's no longer, and you have to like process through that. Oh man.
Oh, it's hard. It was hard. Yeah.
So
it was one of those things where it's like, we obviously had more money than we ever had in our lives. I didn't grow up wealthy. My wife in a similar boat. But it was like shortly after that, it was like, I'd be like, well, why'd you buy the expensive tea? Like if we keep doing things like this, we're going to run out of money before we're dead. Like, totally freaked out about all of it. And she's just like, what are you talking about? Like, you're being ridiculous. And in my mind, because I think I had trained myself in scaling the companies that it's like, we have cash flow. Like I was still operating as a business, but now it's personal and there was no income coming in. So that means it's finite and everything just drops from this point forward.
Right.
And it was tough. It took me a long time to work through. I thought I would solve it by doing a passion project, which just wasted a bunch of money. I had some good learnings, but definitely spent some money on that passion project that was never destined to succeed for anything. And then I ended up helping a friend who actually was my drum instructor in San Diego.
Okay.
And he stood up an online drum lesson business, which, I mean, props to him. He did such a great job. It's called Drum Ambition. If anybody's listening and wants to learn drums, it's like top notch, top quality. I just really admired how much passion he put into the quality of the videos and the quality of the courses and everything. So then I was able to kind of say, okay, wait, I've got some skill sets here that could help get this stood up. And so he started with one module. We expanded that to essentially 5 with a couple 2 bonus modules. We updated the technology that we were using. We improved how we were doing the marketing, the targeting, everything else, and essentially turned it into a well-oiled machine. So even as a essentially single operator, he would fill his day with responses and follow-ups and all this stuff. And we built systems.
That's great.
And so then he was like, then he had his panic attack, wasn't money driven, but it was like, but now what do I do? I have to find other things to fill my day. But that also last year we were able to work with some VCs and do some pretty cool stuff on that side as well. So.
Nice. Okay. But that was where you kind of niche down of like, figure out like, oh, I'm good at processes. I'm good at putting this stuff together. There could be a real niche for me here, which I agree. And so there's what is it? Workday Ninja. Workday Ninja was born.
Yep. Between the merger that we did through that 12-year journey, near the end of that, we merged with one of our competitors, and that helped lead to the exit. And then getting, the drum lesson company stood up to a point where it was, again, going to make it through some due diligence and be of interest to somebody else, then I'm like, okay, we can, there's like,
sure.
This is stuff that I like to do. I'm good at this.
Oh, that's good. So what I think about you in this position that you're in now is every day is different. Where all the other days, I think they were different, but they were all kind of the same status quo. Where this, you get to jump into a lot of different businesses and like try to figure out what's the process. Okay, how can we make that more efficient? Which it's all kind of the same tools, but it's different businesses and how you apply those things. So I think that's probably scratching your itch of just this yearning to try to continue to push yourself, continue to learn more other industries. Oh man, the sky is the limit, my man.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when I was doing the direct consulting directly after the exit, that's when it's like my first client was based in Norway. I got a client in Australia. Worked with people in Uruguay, with us in Estonia, France, Germany, Spain.
Do you go see them at all? You could, right?
So the first company that I worked with was headquartered in Oslo, and they had offices in St. Petersburg and Moscow. Wow. And this was before all the latest stuff happened. But they were having, they invited me out. So I got to go explore Moscow for over a week.
Wow.
It was amazing. We would get together for breakfast and then work all day and then have a great lunch and then go explore. Every evening was a different plan for something. It was just absolutely incredible.
Wow.
But COVID hit kind of during the middle main part of when I was doing the consulting before I scaled up into teams and everything. So travel wasn't, I actually had a second trip with that company already booked, planned to go to Sochi, and had some really cool stuff planned and then stop in Berlin on the way back.
Oh, that's a life.
Shut everything down. It was
disappointing.
But
okay. So how long has Workday Ninja been up and running?
So it was I would say officially, we had the company for as long as I've been doing consulting. We originally called it BGBO. Okay. And it was the idea of being biggest goal, biggest obstacle. And so we achieved the biggest goal, solved the biggest obstacle. But BGBO is a very complicated set of 4 letters, especially in email, that again, very tough for people to remember in the right order and get right.
Right.
So last year we started to rebrand to Workday Ninja, and that got us to where we are now. But essentially, I would say as teams have grown, it's been about a 3-year endeavor that we've scaled up teams, refined exactly where we're offering value, how to focus on automation and AI, how to do the process mapping and identify gaps and opportunities, and really just dial all of our own systems and to provide as much value as possible.
Right. How many employees do you have currently at Workday Ninja?
So we have an account manager, a project manager, a marketing person, production team lead, myself and my partner. And so that's 7 or 6. And then we have 4 production team members.
So fairly lean and mean, but 10.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
What's the future do you see of Workday Ninja?
I think it's a couple of things. I think we're definitely doubling down on the whole process optimization, the transition of the old paradigm to the new paradigm that we're in. So it seems like every business I've done is at the beginning of a paradigm. Websites, social media, and now automation and AI.
Valid. Good observation.
And so, I'm doubling down on that. That's our focus. And we're introducing, rather than just us do a bunch of done for you stuff, and then we introduce it to the companies that we're working for or working with, we're introducing a bunch of educational resources now. So programs to help leadership we're calling it get to out of office. So this whole mentality of there's enough tools out there now where your employees and your team members get the benefit of actually leaving work at work. But as a leader, as a founder, as a business owner, it's very hard to do. Right. And as soon as you step away, you're like, it's going to fall apart. And so basically building up a cohort of like-minded individuals to say, what are the systems you need in place? What's the right mindset you need in place? How do you think about automation? How do you think about AI? How do you design your company so that you have the capability to get out of office, to go camping in Nebraska, to, just mountain bike during the afternoon if that's your jam, just to step away without that panic ensuing. And then we're also doing a 10-week course called an automation boot camp, which is, if you don't know anything about automation, you can start there. And in 10 weeks, you'll be able to process map, identify what can be automated, create the automation, and maintain the automated systems.
That's cool. So give me the price points of all like your offerings, like for you guys to come in and do the whole deal. Like we'll process, we'll AI the whole thing. Like that's probably your top tier. And then the other things are kind of bottom, right? So like, what are we?
Yeah. So
ballparks, you don't have to give us like perfect things. Yeah.
Sure. I do have it all. Of course we have it all set up. So, for the top tier for us to come into a company, it's typically $5,000 to $8,000 a month. Engagements range from 3 to 6, sometimes longer, month-long engagements. And that gets us, in there, identifying the gaps, process mapping, building stuff out, training the teams on how to use the new systems, and then rinse and repeat. And the longevity of the engagement is how much stuff do you want to get done? What's going to continue to create impact? So that's kind of the range of that. The Get Out of Office program is $4,000 for the year. And then the automation boot camp, I should say for the Get Out of Office, it's designed for the concept that you have a visionary and an integrator. And so you bring those two people together for that same price point.
Sure.
And that way you have both sides. If you're an integrator, you're going to get the benefit of knowing the opposite side and vice versa. And then the automation bootcamp is $4,000 for the 10 weeks, but then we support for 6 months after that. And that's per person.
That's great. Awesome, man. Well, Micah, so good to just hear what's going on with Workday Ninja and all like your path, because I'd say it's uncommon, but what a cool opportunity just to be able to be at the forefront of this. So if any of us or any of our listeners wanted to get a hold of you or Workday Ninja, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, workdayninja.com. You can find all of our contact information on there. Workday Ninja on YouTube. We're always releasing great videos on tutorials and a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today. How do we do certain things and why do we think about the things that we're doing and implement across the board? We just released our own podcast. We're a couple episodes released now called Automate Your Agency. And so that's my business partner and I. We each have very different perspectives on things. So we have a dialogue throughout all of our experiences over the years of scaling the last business and getting into this one and what that actually means and looks like and sounds like.
That's good. Well, thank you for your wisdom. Thanks for just spending some time with us today. Until next time, you've been listening to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. I've been your host, Phillip Ramsey. Until next time, go get automated and be uncommon. Thanks for listening.
That's all for this episode, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.